Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to another episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. This week, my guest is Quentin D'Souza. Quentin, we had back on the show, I think it was in the 80s of episodes, 85 or 83 or something like that. But if you want to, Quentin's I think everyone knows who Quentin is, but he's a great source of information. Go back and listen to that one. I didn't look up the episode number, but you can find it. Quentin, let's start by giving everybody a bit of an intro to who you are, and then we'll talk about what you're doing, and
Sure. So I've been investing for a long time. I started investing in real estate in 2004. 2008, I started to buy 3 or 4 properties a year in Ontario. By the time 2013 came along, I could quit my job as a teacher. I didn't. So I was actually a consultant at the board level and have my master's in ed, was going to be a school principal. That's what they were kind of coaching me to do. And I left in 2014, focused on real estate full time, continued to scale and grow since then, did like a dozen flips the first year, did rent homes, did some wholesaling, did a bunch of different things, and started to get into apartment buildings 2015. Just with a 6 unit, and 2018 I got started in the US as well, so started to get some US stuff going, and I have over 100 million in assets in Canada, and probably about, I would say, 1 million in hard assets, and then another 1 million in soft assets in the US. So that's been really good. I've enjoyed that, and I've written 6 books. You can get them on. Now? Yeah, 6. Yeah. Well, it was COVID, man. Like I got 2 books done in COVID.
Wow.
So when other people were, I don't know, doing other shit, I was I was writing books. So no, yeah.
It's funny you say that. Like a lot of people are like, oh, COVID, it slowed my business down. I'm like, my business exploded during COVID. I had the time to focus and really, build the systems out. You had the time to do those things that take a bunch of time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I stopped coaching at the beginning of January last year. I do have a coaching program, but I have one of my former students that runs it for me. And I focused on my real estate portfolio, and ended up doubling my portfolio, actually more than doubling it, since I focused really on acquiring assets. And so that's been really good. So I've been blessed tremendously with a great team of people around me, and great partners, and it's been an awesome ride so far, and I can't see me not doing this. So I really enjoy it, which is I think the important part, right? If you're not enjoying what you're doing, then it makes it a lot harder to do it. But I really enjoy what I'm doing, so it's been great.
Wow. We popped more questions in my head than what I was thinking we were going to go with this, but building this and scaling it to that level, what are your responsibilities now? Do you still do the deal searching, the deal analysis? What parts do you still do?
Yeah, so if you're talking on the Canadian side, so we got to kind of separate Canadian from US, okay? So on the Canadian side, I'm still acquiring assets. I'm not doing the day-to-day property management, and I'm not doing the bookkeeping. I'm not doing any of the day-to-day stuff, but I am, acquiring assets, talking to potential partners, and then I am doing the due diligence and the acquiring of the asset. Once it becomes acquired, then our work starts to carry out the business plan, which is like buy, reposition, refinance, and hold, right? So it's a really like a BRRRR strategy on apartment buildings that's been working really well. And yeah, so I mean, I'm not really doing a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but I am doing on the high level, making sure that the business plan is being carried out. I have lots of people that, like a team that works with me, and that helps to to make sure that things get done. But I'm not working 80 hours a week or anything like that. It's not, it wouldn't be fun,
No kidding.
Yeah.
What about the US side? How does it look down there?
So the US side is really different. So the reason why I'm investing in the US is different. So I'm investing in the US. One, I want to hedge against the Canadian economy. It's just an opportunity to be involved in a different economy, get paid in US dollars, which is good, and invest in an asset class I understand, which is real estate, right? So those are the reasons why. Also, some of our future goals, that's like when I say we, like my wife and myself and our family, is to spend a lot of time traveling to different places, and being able to spend US dollars is really great, and going visiting the assets where you own it in different locations is very helpful. So and she doesn't really want to be in like a Costa Rica or I don't know, a kind of a far off country.
Yep.
I would say she wants to be in somewhere that's kind of like the US. And for me, I don't, as long as it has heat and like palm trees, I'm okay. I don't care where I am. So, I think that's the reasoning why behind it is, but mostly it's that hedge against the Canadian economy that I want to ensure of. And so I've got both hard assets. So we've got 4 properties in Tampa, and those have doubled in value since we purchased them in 2018, which has been good. I just finally refinanced them in March this year for the second time.
Nice.
Which has been really good. And that was a struggle, because the first time I was refinancing, my lender ghosted me in because of COVID. So COVID started in March of 2020. And that's when I had my financing all lined up to go.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, let's sign the documents. And then they ghosted me. Like, it was like, like totally ghosted me. I was like, oh my, what the? So nothing happened. And it took like another year after that to get the financing finally done. And then I found a better lender, paid the penalty and got like, I think it was like around a 4% rate, 5-year rate, with a 30-year amortization, on like a 75% LTV, with a portfolio loan across the 4 properties, was able to release all the capital that I had put into it, the property, or the properties, and then redeploy that. So I'm also involved in a number of LPs in the US, just a little bit of creative stuff. Some of the challenges with that is like, some of the types of depreciation that are available in the US, and some of like the exchanges, like the 1031 exchange, bonus depreciation, they're not really available to Canadians in the same way. No. And so you have to be careful when you're doing your taxes, that you don't, that you remember that that's not available, and that way you can ensure that you're taxed appropriately. First of all, I'm not a tax accountant, so make sure you talk to your cross-border specialist. But even like an accountant in the US wouldn't know that, right? So you need to talk to your Canadian accountant, who will talk to your accountant in the US or has that cross-border specialty. And then that way you're ensuring that everybody's communicating regarding, what's going on. But, that's been really good too. So I've been getting some deferred return or some preferred returns off of those LPs, and also the direct returns that I'm getting from the stuff that I have in Tampa. Like it's probably like, I'm probably making $5,000-6,000 a month from that stuff, which has been really, great. And that gives me the hedge that I'm looking for. So now I don't get the same return profile as I do in Canada, but it just gives me a hedge, right? And that's all I'm looking for.
You mentioned the hedge a couple times, and you said hedge against the Canadian economy. Do you mean like the currency differences, or you market cycles, or what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, everything, right? So because when you're investing in a different country, you're investing in that economy, and you're investing in those dollars. And remember, when we talk about dollars, there's a lot of things that we have to think about, right? Because the value of dollars are different depending on what economy you're in. So let's like go back and think about like let's say in 1912. Okay, you bought a suit in Canada, and you bought a suit and it was like $12, right? And you go and you look at a suit today, and that same suit is like $300. Same suit. So has the suit changed? No. So what's happened?
Your dollar's gotten less valuable.
Right. So and that's not only on a countrywide basis, but that's on a currency basis, right? So so the way that I think of it, that hedge is also when I'm earning dollars in another currency, that's giving me a hedge, and it's kind of thinking strategically, right? I never want something to take me down. I always want to have different options that are out there, and that's given me another option as a Canadian too. I'm not hiding anything. I'm not, there's some people who feel like, they're trying to find shell corporations in the US and, do all this.
Yeah, no.
I don't want to be, hunted down by anybody. Right. So I'm here, like, I'm honest about what I'm doing because I'm disclosing it through my taxes, but it is truly a hedge, right? It's what I'm thinking of, both economically and currency wise.
Have you ever thought about like investing in other countries? Just because you think about Canada and the US, we have a lot of things that are tied together. Like, some of the other ones would be way more separate. If you went to like China, which might be a little bit more difficult to invest in, but even Europe or something like that. When I started investing in the US, I did it by myself and had to go through the growing pains of doing that. GlennSutherland.com/coaching. A 12-week coaching program done 1 hour per week over Zoom from the comfort of your own home. Classes are kept to 5 people to be able to answer everyone's questions. Shortcut the process. Make fewer mistakes. Curriculum available at GlennSutherland.com/coaching.
Well, I've been to different places before, like Belize, Turks and Caicos. I'm actually organizing a trip down to Costa Rica in November with a couple of friends, Rob Brake and Natasha Colchero, down in November this year. So, I mean, I'm willing to look, but I think that there are things that I can always invest differently in those locations versus how I'm investing in the US and Canada because of the law, because of like the history, the way that you can carry out business from a real estate perspective. It's like when you look at, for example, Belize or Turks and Caicos, very like different way of trying to transact on real estate, right? It's totally not the same. I might look at like the UK, and I have looked at properties in the UK, but the numbers just are way out of whack. It doesn't make sense to me, right? So it has to make sense as well, which is often, I'm looking at from an investor eyes as well as from a capital protection perspective. Yeah.
So you just put out on your channel just yesterday, and I didn't actually watch it yet, but you put out a video. Why should a Canadian invest in the US, right? A Canadian real estate investor invest in the US. Why should a Canadian invest in the US?
Well, I think you have to think about, first of all, what your goals are in life and what you want to do and future pace your investments to what it is that you want. So if you're planning on staying at home and staying in Canada and not really doing much, there's no reason to invest in the US from my perspective.
Yeah.
If you're going to be traveling, if you're looking to create a sustainable real estate portfolio that kind of, maybe is multi-generational, then perhaps, you have then you should be looking at the US. So is it right for everybody? No. But is it right for a lot of people? If you're looking to travel, I suggest it is, right?
Yeah.
Some people like yourself, right? You can totally shift the way that your income is coming in through US real estate. But honestly, you could do the same thing in Canada, right? It just would be different. So for some people, it's a whole, economic shift. So everybody has to look at it from their own goals perspective. I never say that there's a right way or wrong way of doing it, but I do think that, if you plan on traveling, or you plan on, like, there's a lot of Canadians who plan to be snowbirds, like, there's no reason why you shouldn't own, especially properties that have a good yield and good return. I think that's a great opportunity for Canadians to be able to take advantage of that. There's a lot of people who are looking right now to Alberta or the East Coast because the laws are different, or they're able to get better returns. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but you have to understand the depth of of what each province is and what they do, and like population growth and a lot of the fundamentals. And if that still makes sense to you, then for sure, take the time and invest in those markets. But, like, as a Canadian investing in the US, I think, you got to look at your goals. And then if the goals line up, then yeah, for sure, you should be taking the time and investing there.
Awesome. You just mentioned some stuff about the laws. And I know in Canada, you're focused on multifamily apartments. Does that are those related at all? Is it that's why you went into the apartment thing? Because I know for a single family home, and depending on what market you're in, it could be like $1 million right now to rent, is in numbers having to make sense. Is that why you go into the multifamily?
Yeah, you know what? I think that what people tend to see is they see like like when you're looking at 1 to 4 unit properties, the way that you evaluate a property is based on a comparative model. So an appraisal is based on the property that's sold next door, the property that's sold across the street, right? The difference in apartment building and the challenge you have with that is that, let's say, your property is worth 1.1 million, but your rents only give you a debt coverage ratio that allows you to take $500,000 out on a mortgage on that property. That's not all you have, is some debt equity in there. Sure, you could do creative financing to access it, maybe a second, maybe like, portfolio credit line or something, but you have to be creative about that. In the multifamily space, the valuation of the property is based on the net operating income. And the net operating income is something that I can change and control. Whereas in the, yes, I can control somewhat by adding value to a property, improving it, like in the 1 to 4 unit space, but it's much easier. We've created an environment in Ontario with rent control that makes it very hard to turn over units. And when you do turn over units, you can add value to a property. So let me give you an example. And Americans, like, when I explain this to them, they like, actually, I was on the East Coast and I was explaining this to some East Coast investors, and they were like, what? This doesn't even, like, why would you do that? So so I paid $7,000 to 3 tenants to leave in one of my buildings in the GTA. Okay, so why would I pay $7,000 for each tenant to leave? So let's say, so I'm moving from $800 in rent to $1,600 in rent for each unit. Okay. So that means that I'm increasing for all 3 units, I'm increasing my net operating income by $2,400 per month. Okay. Right. So if I look at $2,400 per month and I multiply it by 12, okay, that is $28,800. Okay. Now I divide it by the cap rate, because remember, apartment buildings are based value on the cap rate. Okay. So now I divide it by, and the CMHC will use a cap rate of 0.04%, right? A 4 cap, but market cap rate is 3. So I'm going to say 4 cap for, and this is how much value gets added, $720,000. So is it worth $7,000 per unit and plus probably about another $5,000 to $6,000 just to turn over the unit? So maybe I'm into it for 40K.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? 720,000? Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the difference between multifamily and 1 to 4 unit properties. How do you change that value so quickly? And we've created this system. Like, this is a system, and it's specific to this market, right? California is similar, but not as bad as Ontario, because the system is. But all I'm doing is I'm working within the system to be able to do that. I've written 2 books on property management. Like, I understand how to take advantage of the property management piece of it and clean up a building. Right? Like, that's what we're doing. We're taking a building that was like C and making it B or better. And that's what I'm doing with these buildings. And that's the value add and difference between a 1 to 4 unit, is now I can actually grab that additional value, right? Yep. If I did that in a 1 to 4 unit building, sure, I could grab a little bit more value, but it's not as much as an apartment building. And it's like in a 1 to 4 unit property, maybe it's like $100,000 that you pull out. In an apartment building, it can be like $1 million, right? So it becomes like numbers that are more life-changing, I would say.
Yes.
Now, so in the way that, like, we're at 24 buildings, 25 buildings closing in June, right? And now think of it this way. If you think of it structurally on a decade basis versus day trading houses, right?
Right.
So think of it this way. You have all of these refinances lined up so that every year you're doing 2 or 3 of these refinances. Okay.
Yep.
So what does that look like to you as an investor? To me, it means that when I'm turning over buildings and I have this chain where I'm refinancing and I'm continuing to build value, I'm still getting cash flow from the assets when I refinance, because you're not going to get more than a debt coverage ratio of 1.2 anyways, right? So you're going to be able to still cash flow on the asset. You're going to pull out that additional value, and you're going to do that every year on 2 or 3 buildings. So that's 720. Imagine you do that 2 or 3 times a year.
Yep.
Significant?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's the difference.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference in multifamily. I find that 1 to 4 units were really great for me in order to enable me to leave my job. Right. That was great for me to leave teaching. I was doing very well. I was on the Sunshine List in Ontario. Right. So that's over 100, a public sector worker who makes over 100,000 a year. That was back in 2013. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I've well eclipsed that from what I do. But I have to say that, like, just being able to think from a net worth perspective and looking at apartment buildings, it's a great net worth generator. And yes, I care if property values go down by 10% or 15% or 20%. Yes, I care. But in the grand scheme of things, I'm in for it, for that suit that we bought for $12 in 1912. Yeah. That's worth the same suit, but now it costs $300, right?
Yeah. Oh, I had something I was going to ask you, but I lost my train of thought. I have another question that popped up. You said at some point you're changing properties from a C class to a B class property. How do you do that? How do you switch it from a C to a B?
Well, in Ontario, we have really archaic, like landlord-tenant board laws that are very tenant protective, and this is how it is, okay? But what happens is you have buildings where you have some tenants that are really dragging down the building. Either they're like, they're doing drugs, they're just a pain in the butt. They keep their property stinks because they have urine smell or like and it's not necessarily the location or condition of the building. It's oftentimes it's tenants that are the problem, right? And they're interfering with the reasonable enjoyment of other tenants in the building. We've created this mess. So sometimes all we have to do is work to turn over the problem tenants. So if we can turn over those problem tenants, we can change even the feeling of the building from a C to a B. Then we're also, we're doing things like we're cleaning up the hallways, the units, the common areas. We're improving the condition of the building. You can't change the location of the building, but you can. So like we're looking at those B areas with a C quality building, and then we're able to transition that building into something that's better by turning over some of those units. And then all of a sudden I can't tell you how many times like we've turned over a particular tenant or two in a building, and how much the other tenants appreciated and thank you. Like it's just like, oh my God, thank God this person is gone. Like it was, and they're just, but we've created this awful system that we think that, there's your bureaucracy here that doesn't work very well in Ontario when it comes to like not only helping turn over like solving problems, but like dealing with those problems, right? They're like the process takes so long. Anyways, I could go on about that, but that's not what we're here for.
And you said 7K, you paid those tenants. Is that like, how do you know how much to pay them?
Well, what you would want to do is define for yourself what that's worth, right? And you don't often start at 7K. You would probably start at like 1,000 or 2,000 or 500.
Yeah.
It just depends on where you want to start.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at how much is it going to cost them to move, and what is it like, where are they going to find to move to, and
Yeah.
what are they going to pay when they move there. So that's what we're looking at when we're doing all of this.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, I thought about starting another topic. Instead, I'm going to have you come back in like another, maybe in the fall or something. But
sure,
I can pick your
no
brain
problem.
every like 6 months or something. We're recording in May, by the way, if anyone's when we're listening to this, but because I think it'll probably come out in July. But Quentin, you have what did you say, 6 books now?
Yeah, 6 books. Yep.
Any of them on Audible? Can I like download?
No, because I'm old school. I honestly, I wrote all the books for my kids. Yeah. So like the first 2 books, the property management books, I wrote for my wife. I know this is morbid in case I passed away. So she had have like a guidebook on how to do this stuff. And then people were asking me about it. And I just put it in a book and it said, stop asking me, buy the book, right?
I got one of them.
Yeah, there you go. And then, the other books, like over time, I figured that if I want my kids to be able to do what I do, they may not want it to do it now. They may want to do it 20 years from now, and they want to kind of hear what like my dad did, and maybe I won't be there, right? And so instead of not being there, I want them to be able to hear it from my words and how I'm thinking. And so that's why I put those books together. So I have a book on this like the scaling up toolbox, which is about raising money and all the intricacies that go into that. And you can't even buy that on Amazon. You have to go to jointventurebook.com. That's the only place to get it. The finding properties toolbox, the filling vacancies toolbox, the property management toolbox, the ultimate wealth strategy, and the action taker real estate action planner, which is more about like thinking about wealth, how to do goal setting. A lot of that stuff is in the planner. So like they're all for my kids, right? Well, the first two are for my wife, and the other four are for my kids, so that they can do what they want. But I haven't done Audible. Everybody keeps asking me the same thing. I got to hire somebody to do it. That's all.
Yeah, hire somebody to just read your book out loud and record the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
This might be a really dumb question. Is it the same prices on jointventurebook.com as Audible, or sorry, as Amazon or whatever?
No, it's not available on Amazon. You can't.
Oh,
Yeah,
so get them all on jointventurebook.com.
no, you can only get the scaling up toolbox on jointventurebook.com, and then the rest of them, the other 5, you can get on Amazon. And so the reason why I don't put it on Amazon is, first of all, there's some, I would say, it's a process that I've kind of come up with. And I also, there's a lot of securities agencies out there, and I really don't want to draw a lot of attention to myself. And so it's better for me to just put it on a URL and that's it. Because and I mentioned that, right? I talk about the Ontario Securities Commission. Like, I only work with accredited investors. So, I'm not really, pitching you ROIs and numbers when I'm talking, right?
Never should.
No, you never
Even
should.
if you're doing single family or something small, never pitch that anywhere. Facebook. Yeah.
It's problematic. So I mentioned that in the book, right? So I'm trying to be on side, but I also go through the entire process. So and I really didn't want to draw attention to myself, so that's why it's not on Amazon. But I still wanted to write it because I need to have something for my kids to follow. And if it's not there, then like, where is it, right? It's in my head. It's not going to help anyone, right? So,
well, I'm going to go buy a book today. I like to read a book every month, and I haven't picked my May book, and we're like on the 10th, I think, or 12th, or whatever the date is, 11th. I still haven't picked my book for this month, so I'm falling behind. So now you help me out. So problem solved. One of my goals is done.
Great stuff.
Okay, Quentin, if people wanted to get a hold of you, where's the best way to find you?
The best way to find me is probably using that link tree. Like, if you go to Linktree Quentin REI, that's the easiest way. I don't know if you've used Linktree before, but it's just like a link that has a list of all your links, right? So I'll send you the URL for that. But also, you can catch me on Instagram, Quentin REI, or if you go to let's say DurhamREI.com, that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of me, is through that website. Just because with the club, we've got like people all over come out, so it's been really good. Actually, we've grown over. I thought we would shrink over COVID. We actually have grown,
really,
which is well, now which is really odd. So we actually have grown about 30. We're about 300 members now, right? Which is pretty awesome. But we have members from all around the country, and because we're doing like live streaming and we're doing live, we end up with the same amount of people, but half of them are in person and half of them are online, which has been totally different. But like, we're just trying to adapt to the times, right? So it's been pretty cool. But yeah, I guess the people that didn't adapt probably are feeling it, but we did, and now I think we're kind of benefiting from that.
You answered my next question. If it was live still, I personally love the live ones. It's good to get the information, but the networking and the connections and being around people that are doing big things, I need to boost every once in a while. Otherwise, I just get into the rhythm of doing my own thing. I need to get pushed up again, right? That's why I go to masterminds and other things, right? I like that boost anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like tonight is a meeting. Actually, we'll probably have like maybe about 80 people out. Before COVID, we'd have like 150, right? So but we also will have probably 40 or 50 people like watching it live at the same time. So it's one of those things. And and I do masterminds as well, like like in coaching and stuff like that. Like, I was on the East Coast last week, and I meet with other investors from across Canada. Like,
Yep.
like, and they're much bigger than me, like, 300 million in assets, that sort of thing. And I feel like I'm the small guy in the room, right?
I love that feeling though.
Yeah. But I'm learning a lot, right? And
Yeah.
there's always things that I start to pick up, and the mindset is totally different. So, and you've got to put yourself in those rooms, meet up with people, get pushed, get inspired, and then, you go back and you work, right?
Yep. Well, Quentin, thanks for coming on the show. Like always, amazing content.
Hey, no problem. Nice to talk to you, Glenn. And we'll have to catch up and figure out what you're doing too. I haven't heard like all the, like, I keep seeing all your projects going on and stuff like that. So it sounds like you're on fire.
Yeah, maybe I'll head over there next month. Maybe head over to Durham, take the drive.
Yeah, sounds good.
Better.
All right, Glenn.
Thanks.